It's Mike Shope.
I can't believe you're the age you are and you've not seen giraffes run on a TV show. What?
And the Bulldog.
Long-range toddy? How would you make that up?
Someone did.
On WGR.
Sorry, I got a spit take on a mic over here.
Someone did. It's great.
Sports Radio 550.
I still have no idea who's watching shows where giraffes are on the move. Like, what is that? Where are you going? What are you watching? Was that in The Sopranos? Where are giraffes?
Of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. Any of these planet shows that you would watch when you have little kids.
I did watch The Wire, where giraffes
HD. I mean,
running
any
around.
of those documentaries. I'm documentaries.
National Geographic on Disney Plus now.
Yeah,
There's
sure.
a lot of
yeah.
it there.
Giraffes.
Yeah.
Giraffes, sure.
I see them at Animal Kingdom every year. We were just there last month. They're always just standing there, eating off the trees. Nothing more.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced they move at all.
They're sad to be captive. They're not roaming the Serengeti.
Well,
then you see them run.
Hopefully they can appreciate that they're not at risk of being eaten.
I suppose that's a plus. Yeah.
You'd like to think those animals could appreciate that, but maybe I'm asking for too much. All right,
or maybe because they're animals, they never get over the thought that they could be eaten. It's just baked in. No matter where you are, you could be at Disney World for 10 years and still be like looking over your shoulder all the time. That's tough.
That's right. That could be right. Wow, I'm sort of stunned by that point. I love it. Okay, so putting that aside, the Aaron Rodgers thing, Jake Kummerow is funny. Like, he's on the Bills and made one catch for them. Sal mentioned him too. Like, Sal was talking about receiver. They didn't. Well, they did draft Stevenson, Marquez Stevenson. Is that his name? And so maybe he becomes in the mix or as a returner. We'll see. But there's still the guys they had. There's Emmanuel Sanders now. There's Isaiah Hodgins, who they drafted last year, and there's also Kummerow. Made a touchdown catch in Denver last year for them. And so the Rodgers thing is that, like, what Joe just had was Rodgers had just said, like, publicly how happy he was with Kummerow, how good a player he was or something like that. And the next day, the Packers cut him, and they didn't even discuss it with Rodgers. So from that, you've got this story that, like, the Schefters are out there trying to sort of explain or figure out themselves even what Rodgers' problem is. It's not like the Packers haven't been really good. He does have Devontae Adams. He does have Aaron Jones. He does have an all-pro tackle. He did have an all-pro center. It's not like the Packers just have nothing around Aaron Rodgers. Mm-hmm. So, like, what is the problem? And there's this. There's, in different forms, the draft last year too, but they're not consulting Rodgers, right? Like, they're not
They're not
going
holding his
to
hand
him
the right way. They're not. Yeah, I mean, they're not. I think maybe there's lots of different ways you could say it. Maybe he feels like they're taking him for granted.
Yeah, that's probably right. But so he wants to be consulted on some level. He wants to be asked what kind of moves the Packers should make. The draft picks last year, this one, whatever. And I just wanted to talk about whether he has the right to ask for that. Like, so Josh Allen got this 5th-year extension today, and the next thing for him to get is a monster contract, like what Rodgers has, and he's the quarterback of the Bills forever. Do we want the Bills to ask Josh Allen what he thinks of their ideas? Like, do
Sure.
we do?
Sure. I think what you need to do, and I think you got to be careful because you don't want to be patronizing guys, but I think it's more important than doing the things that a guy like Rodgers or Allen eventually would want his team to do. I think you need to give off the appearance. This is what happened with Deshaun Watson, too, I think. You just want to give off the appearance that you're not just patronizing them. I think sports has changed a lot. The star players, and maybe in the NFL, they're waking up to the reality that they have maybe more power than they thought they did. It can be uncomfortable and hard making change, but you do have some power. Like the NBA, it feels like the players run the league. And like there are different rules that make that easier, contract design, guarantees, that sort of stuff. I think with a player that reaches the level that Rodgers is at, I think, want to believably involve him, even if you're not going to do everything he wants you to do. But I think you want to give him a seat at the table. I think that's how sports is now. And I know there are probably people my age, or maybe even a little younger, that hear that and think, hold it. Who owns the team? Who picks the players? Your job, you get paid $40 million a year to throw the football. Shut up. Go sit over there, and I'll tell you who you're going to throw the football to. And I think that sounds really good if it's 1970. But it's not 1970. It's 2021. And these guys are megastars, and they're paid like it. And they are pop culture stars as much as they are sports stars. And they have juice. And I think you want to do, as much as it might grate on you to do it, I think you need to do everything you can to make sure that person always feels like they're being heard and, for lack of a better way to put it, loved. We love you. What do you need? What's going to make you happy? I'm not going to be able to do,
on top of the $40 million.
Yeah, on top of the $40 million. Yeah, because the $40 million, anybody's going to give him $40 million. There's 20 teams out there that give him 50 right now. So you got to just work at it. I don't think you can just take for granted that because the guy has a contract, then he's gonna respect that. I think there's a certain amount of hand-holding that has to go on, and I know that sounds even like the way I'm saying it, and I apologize because I'm not at all saying Rodgers is being a baby by saying hand-holding. It's romance. You need to keep the marriage fresh and pay attention to another. And I think he's the most important person within that team and has been for 15 years. And I think you really you run a risk if you just ignore what you know to be things he wants.
This is also
I think
consulting Jack Eichel on decisions.
Sure. Yes. No one likes, I think, if you're the GM or the coach or even the owner, I don't think it's that palatable to have to admit that you have to do that. But I think the reality in this era is that you have to do that. I think if you don't do that, you run the risk of having this happen.
Well, I want to make some distinction here between I'm the GM. I want to do a lot of what you're talking about. I want to express this sort of feeling to have Rodgers mean something in our decisions. He has a place at the table, all of that. But that can be offered, but not be enough, just saying, hypothetically at least, not be enough if you're still going to make the decisions you think are right for the team. Like you said at the beginning, they could just tell him in the 70s or something, they would tell him to shut up. I'm not saying the Packers should have told him to shut up. Like, I get and agree with what do you think? Like, come on over. Like, what do you think about it? We want to do this. This is like, firing Mike McCarthy. It's not necessarily every roster move I make, but it's okay. I get it. Okay, I think that's what I would do. He outranks me in the organization. I would understand that too. So I would want to do those things. I just wouldn't let him decide for me. And if Rodgers, the Kumaro thing sounds more like they're trying to embarrass him. Because the next day they might be trying to embarrass him. Obviously, that could be a problem. If that's really what they're trying to do, then that could be a problem. But if Aaron Rodgers thinks Jake Kumaro should start over somebody whatever, you want to draft somebody and whatever it could be, then I don't know. I can't live like that. I can't have my quarterback making my personnel moves.
Sure. No, I think that, that stretches, even my sort of liberal guidelines. The Kumaro thing is really interesting, a little bit because he's on the Bills now, but it's such a frivolous, on both sides, it's such a frivolous thing, which is why, I buy, that's the turning point. That's the break. That's the straw that broke the camel's back, or whatever, however you want to put it. Because on both sides of it, you think, like, what? How important is Jake Kummerow, really, right? But Rodgers likes him. I don't know that he's, like, telling you to get him on the field in front of Valdez-Scantling or something, but he likes the guy. He's probably your fourth or fifth receiver at best. Why cut him? Like, if you know Rodgers likes him and likes having him around, and, he, assuming he's not in the way, and assuming that he's not, that Rodgers isn't insisting the guy start or something, but he's on the team, why do you have to take him out back of all the guys on your team? Why?
I don't know.
Like, it seems like just such a ridiculous thing to have done in the first place if you're the Packers. And if they don't know that Rodgers liked him or went to bat for him 24 hours before they released him, that's on them for not paying attention to what their quarterback says. And if they did it anyway, knowing that it would upset Rodgers, then they deserve what they get. Even if it's about Jake Kummerow, which, again, seems sort of preposterous on some level, but both sides, I think, are maybe ridiculous. And I say the Packers more so, because what's the harm in keeping the guy around making $925,000 or whatever that level of receiver makes for any team in the NFL? Mm-hmm. It just seems so dopey to burn a bridge down over that guy. And, I agree that it seems pretty frivolous on Rodgers' end, too. But after however many years of it building, I can understand it being a thing like, really? You had to do that? I know it's just Jake Kummerow, but come on. I just said this guy is important, and I like having him here, and you got to go and cut him to make room for who knows what, a nickel safety or something. Like, what?
Yeah, like, I want to be able to sort of defend the Packers for this. It's sort of the place I'm in, and point to a draft pick that they made or a signing or something. Like, okay, well, he was your friend or whatever. You liked him, but we did this instead. Is that a problem? But you can't do that here. You can't. Like, they did trade up for a quarterback in round 1 last year. They drafted a backup running back and then signed their other running back, Jones. They've done a lot of those kinds of moves that overall might look like they're meant to spite Rodgers. Now, why would they want to do that? Why would they want – that's always been – last year, the Monday after the draft, I know we talked about Green Bay. Mm-hmm. Because why? Everybody was talking about Green Bay after last year's draft. What are they doing? But what kind of management would be spiteful like that, to that extent? And then so you walked out of last year's draft. They draft Jordan Love. They trade up for him, draft A.J. Dillon. They drafted a tight end who never played either. Just like they did all these things, and it was so confusing. And then they went and won 13 games again. The last 2 years, they've been 13-3. You're supposed to think that Rodgers can't stand anybody. Coaches, McCarthy, and then this coach maybe. The GM is maybe more in the crosshairs this time.
Sounds like it, yeah. It's
not ownership, but the CEO goes out there and tries to appease him, and he'd know all this stuff, right? Like, he would know if we're talking about the situation as though Rodgers is way more important to the Packers than the general manager. We both think so. Then what is the CEO doing keeping the GM on? Like, or is that something where he goes, I'm just not going to give in to him?
Right.
It can't work like that. You work here. Yeah. You work for us. We'll build the team. You play.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It would surprise me. Well, no, let me back up. I don't think it would surprise me. I guess maybe there is a old school problem. Like, Green Bay doesn't feel like they have to cater everything I just said 10 minutes ago. They feel like they don't have to do that. We're the Green Bay Packers. Bart Starr, Brett Favre, you're Aaron Rodgers. Those guys didn't make personnel decisions for us, and we're not going to start now. But that's why I said, like, you have to, I think, you can't have Aaron Rodgers running the team for you. But you need to, like, you just need to give him the impression that he is being heard. And it seems like mostly the opposite has been happening with Green Bay. Like, there's got to be some space between where they are and what I'm describing, where Rodgers would be like, well, I'm okay. It's not ideal, but like they're, I know they respect me and they're listening to me and all that. Maybe that's just not happening at all. I don't know, but you have to be careful, because if you do it, and this is from reading a lot before the Watson thing became a legal crisis and a very serious set of allegations against him about sexual violence towards women. The falling out with the Texans, to me, very much sounded like a team that said, yes, we hear you, black quarterback of our team, and we'll do what we need to do to keep you happy, but really we're only going to do the very minimum, and then maybe not even any of that too. But we'll smile and shake your hand and say, yes, you'll have a voice, we'll listen to you, but in the end, your place is under center.
Right. Watson claimed that he was told he would be consulted on head coach and then said he wasn't.
Yeah. And that always read to me like nod, wink, wink. Yeah, we run the team. You shut up.
You play.
And maybe there's some of that, right. And maybe there's some of that going on in Green Bay too.
See, if I'm Rodgers, I feel like I've given that organization a chance. I feel like I've stuck around for 15 years, and I would almost be bitter that, and he sounds this way in interviews, that like he wants more from his legacy than one Super Bowl. And he might feel bitter that I'm 15 years in, I've been this good for this long, and we can only get one Super Bowl out of it, because Tom Brady is winning 6 and then going to an organization that is getting all of the treatment that Rodgers sounds like he wants right now. Like, Brady's off in Tampa. He wants Antonio Brown. The Buccaneers are signing Antonio Brown. He wants Leonard Fournette. They're going to sign Leonard Fournette. He wants to play a different offense than Bruce Arians plays. Like, they're going to change the offense for him a little bit. Like, he's getting that treatment, and then they just won the Super Bowl, giving the quarterback that kind of power. And if Rodgers is sitting here in Green Bay thinking, well, it just worked for Tampa. They just beat us. So why can't we do something similar to that? Because otherwise, I could probably go somewhere and try to push my way to somewhere that will give me that same treatment that Tampa Bay gave to Tom Brady.
Well, they lost the NFC Championship by 5 points after going 13-3 in the regular season for the second year in a row. They were first in the league in scoring.
Yeah, but like if I'm Rodgers, I'm thinking like
It's
I
all
got
me.
you this far. Like you've drafted one offensive player in 10 years and it was a quarterback. Like how many would we have won another Super Bowl had you put more investment into what's around me than just asking me to lift everything up? Like that's how I would think if I were him.
Okay.
And I think it sounds like that's the way he thinks.
And he maybe gave them last year without making this a big public ordeal. There was talk after the draft that he was miffed, and that's back up again. Like they didn't call him or anything when they drafted Jordan Love. It is wild how much of it looks like they're just out to rankle him.
That's a weird one too, by the way, because there was a report this weekend that the coach also didn't know that they were trading up for Jordan Love.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I want to side with Green Bay. I mean, Rodgers has sort of a reputation in a certain way, or the family thing, and what Tyler Dunn wrote about him, and just like he seems like a guy that
high maintenance.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Thank you. That's perfect. I mean, super high maintenance.
Yep.
But at the same time, he's played in the league since 2005, and it's not like we're sitting here every offseason going, how can he stand it in Green Bay, and having all these examples of why he should want to leave. You know, this is kind of a new thing. Last couple of years is kind of a new thing. So maybe he's right. All right, 803-0550 to comment. Mike Shope and the Bulldogs. Sabres pregame at 6 on WGR.
Yeah, the exact truth is I don't want to wake up the next day on Friday and see Aaron Rodgers, one of the best quarterbacks in this league, traded without doing any due diligence on it. So I just called Matt and asked him if there was anything to it. And Matt told me I'd be wasting my time if we had Lynch call. And so Lynch did not call anyone the next day. But, yes, I did reach out to Matt the night before and asked him hey, man, I don't want to wake up the next day and see that Aaron was traded for something. I didn't at least look into it.
Okay, I believe him. I believe every word. Kyle Shanahan. What do you think, Bulldog? Am I wrong? I believe everything he said.
Sure.
Is that right?
I'll buy it.
You'll buy it too?
Yep.
Now I know I'm right to believe it. Now I'm
Yep.
very confident.
Believe me, I don't take this lightly, being the arbiter of truths versus untruths for you and the show. So yeah, sure, that makes sense.
I wonder if these guys ever refer to not calling on somebody or on players when that they think it doesn't include texting or emails or whatever. Like they can sort of feel like they're getting away with that.
Yeah, he said Lynch didn't call.
Didn't call, right?
Did
but who
text.
calls?
Right.
But Shanahan said he called Matt.
He could have meant texting, though.
You think so?
I think
like
we've
it's
had
sort of
this
included.
discussion. Calling can mean texting.
Yeah, but if you wanted sort of to have a loophole in your argument, like Shanahan there, maybe. But it's not like he's under oath either.
Yeah, I definitely feel like now with I think when I've texted, like I'll ask my wife, "Did you talk to Owen today?" And she'll say, "Yeah," and I go, "Really talk to him, or did you text?" And she's like, "We texted." Like, okay, we try to like not go too many days in a row without actually talking to one another while he's 1,500 miles away. But it does get away from you sometimes, and you do, I think, pretty liberally substitute texting for talking.
Yeah, talking is texting. Calling is you spoke to Owen.
Right.
If you spoke to Owen, you wouldn't mean text ever. I don't think.
Okay. We have the Sabres and Islanders tonight. Michael Hauser in goal. Joe has been reporting how this is going to be 6 goalies for the Sabres this year, their most since 2013-14. I'm not sure if it's like one of the highest totals in NHL history. It seems like it could be. Not a record, I bet, but 6 in a year. And this is in 50 games. Like the Sabres they're not going to play a full season, and they're at 6. Can you name the 6 goalies from 2013-14?
Let me get Taylor Luan out of the way, the
No.
offensive tackle for the Tennessee Titans.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're just reminding yourself not to select Taylor Lewan
Because that's happened.
for this question.
Right, because there's one of the 6, I think, that
Yeah.
year was Nathan Lewin.
Yeah.
Is that year? Okay, then. And that's the mistake I've made. So, yeah, I think I got my hands around it. It's him. It's Matt Hackett. Miller. Neuwirth. Enroth.
It's 5.
Oh, I think I know the last one.
Who is the last one? I sort of...
Connor Knapp.
Correct.
Okay.
I
Good job,
mean,
Joe.
not only is it 6 goalies in one season, there are several names you could have chosen that aren't right, but they're close. Nilsson,
Right.
Lindback.
Lindback.
Yep.
Right? Like there are other guys here that could have been right.
Ryan Vins dressed that year, but he didn't touch the ice, so that doesn't count.
I mean, Miller, in the year where they played used 6 goalies, Miller and Enroth started a total of 66 games. For most of that season, they were not using 6 goalies. They were using 2.
They used 2. Yeah,
until
they would
the
have been
deadline.
through this season with the 2 of them, right? I mean,
Yeah, until the deadline, and maybe here and there one of these guys fit in with an injury or something. But really, like they had 2 goalies that season. That was an awful season. Like that team finished last by 15 points or something like that. The Sabres are close to locking up last place, by the way. They're 6 points behind Anaheim with 4 games left. Like they're almost certain to finish last. 33 points in 52 games. Yikes.
8 goalies is the record, by the way. The Flyers in 2018-19 used 8 goalies.
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
That's a full season. The Flyers used 8 goalies. I believe you.
There's one name that's the same as the Sabre list.
Neuwirth.
7 games that year for the Flyers. We don't need to do the rest of the list. Elliott, 26.
Carter Hart would have made his debut that year.
31, led the team. Anthony Stolarz, Cal Pickard, Cam Talbot, Alex Leon, Mike McKenna.
Okay.
Thank you.
We
I call him Cal
didn't need
Picard,
this.
by the way.
Cam Talbot maybe was gettable. We didn't need to stew on that.
Put a poll up. Was Cam Talbot gettable? Bulldog, what is something else from this draft that you think is like a cool story or that you're sort of interested in? We haven't talked about the Bills in a while here like we should be. Sal was on earlier. We spent most of the first hour on it. I think that they're sort of drafting like, and this is perhaps right. I don't think this is not logical. They're drafting like they can coach the most out of players. So give me the tools and we'll take it from there. And that's like, you got huge guys here in this draft. And, they're a pretty complete team, so they didn't exactly have to fill too many holes.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway is like believing more in best player available, because here was a team drafting where they were drafting that I think did that. I mean, they went back-to-back defensive ends and back-to-back offensive tackles, and like now it's Saturday. Like one of the tackles was on Saturday, I recognize. The more I know, like, you can read what's a guy's height and weight when he's drafted, and you go, wow, that's a big guy, right? 6'7", 265, right? Might be the measurables on Rousseau or thereabouts. Seeing him walking around, like, recognizing that Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane are not gigundous human beings.
I know,
Rousseau
though, right?
looks like he's from a different planet. Like, he just is such a massive individual. And I feel like watching some of what he did in college, albeit, more than a year ago, I think he's got the potential to be a really impressive player. Like the height, the size, the long arms. Like I've gone from okay to extremely intrigued, and I'll admit, like, some of that is the Bills drafted him, right? I mean, I'm not going to pretend like I can't be susceptible to that. But I'm intrigued by the tools. And as much fun as we've had over the years, like making fun of Tools' season, even in the year that the Bills drafted maybe the toolsiest quarterback of all time in the first round in Josh Allen, I'm into Rousseau. I'm into the skill set there, and I didn't expect to really be that bullish on a pass rusher at 30, but I'm into him.
Yep. Well, yeah, I think they have a lot of confidence in themselves to get the most out of players. I think it's always best to have like an angle, and I'm not sure if the Bills would, even agree with this perhaps, but just like if they did, would they consider it an angle? We're going to go in and draft guys with this thought in mind. Who are the guys that potentially are the most undervalued because of production or circumstances, the sort of typical reasons why the NFL might not rate them higher? Guy didn't do this. He didn't. I think of the Bills guys, like the management, as a group that does care about some of that stuff, and I find a lot of that stuff old-fashioned. That's really like how players talk in interviews. It's the Eagles coach asking guys to play rock, paper, scissors with him. Matt Rule had another thing like this with Carolina. What was it? He said that he asked players a certain question. I forget. Like, there's a lot of that in football. It's kind of famous and sort of you can make fun of it for this. But after that, and I don't know how much of that the Bills do. I just feel like they would be somewhat like that at least. But when it comes to the player, there'd be reasons why certain guys would be lower overall that maybe they think should just gives them sort of an opportunity, an edge in the market. So you've got massive guys here with a lot of physical gifts. Mario Puig is one of my guys from RotoWire, and I tweeted it right away when I saw it on Saturday. He's like, no one's going to care about this, but what did he say? That Spencer Brown and the tackle they drafted after him in round 5 physically are better. They could be better than the guys the Bills have. The Bills just paid the guys that they have, Williams and Dawkins. But like, it wouldn't surprise him if these guys were better than that. And that's a guy who knows as much about these players coming into the league. I just respect his opinion very much. That read pretty well. So, like, now we just sort of sit down and see what happens over time. But I would have liked a wide receiver higher because I think, like, this is going to be a thing for me, and I'll be careful to be fair about what the Bills can do about this to prevent it. Because, should they have drafted a receiver at pick 30? Should they have drafted Elijah Moore, for instance? I don't know. It's not obvious to me that they should have done that. But I'm stuck on how their receiving prowess with Allen got them into the Final Four. That was the reason that they were so good. Their defense was fine. The team overall otherwise was fine. They made a lot of field goals, but their ability to throw the ball downfield is why they won. And Are they thin? No. They added Sanders. They drafted a guy. They've had other guys. Hodgins from last year didn't play.
Right.
Maybe they're not. There's only so much you can do. So this quote, this fear of mine, they may share it. And still have not ended up at, we were going to draft receivers in the first 3 rounds. I mean, there's a limit. So that'll be something to watch. I don't know what they can do about it, really. I don't want to say they should have made those other picks, but it's something that was on my mind going into this draft, and it really didn't change coming out.
For sure, yeah. I mean, I was definitely into really every time we talked about it, when I got done with my 12-minute spiel about Travis Etienne, one of you, Joe or yourself, Mike, would say something about receiver. I don't hate that. That could serve the same purpose. Get me a stick of dynamite to unleash on this offense. I know I'm already deep there, but still, how did McDermott say? Work on your fastball? Something to that effect. What do you do best? They pass the ball. Well, let's make sure we are set up to keep doing that if something, happens to one of the above. And they waited a long time to do anything about that. And we'll see. I mean, I was sort of, I don't know, I'll stop short of saying expecting. I guess I was hoping for some influx of speed before, the 6th round on Saturday.
Yep. All right, Sabres pregame at 6. Paul Hamilton will join us. We'll talk about Michael Hauser, a pretty great story as he plays his first NHL game tonight. We mentioned the 6 goalies. Sabres and Islanders pregame at 6. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR.
With great determination and great coaching, I think this is a guy that could be a real riser over the course of his career. And as you see, Cousins has been collecting checks there in Minnesota for a long time, taking them to 8-8, 9-7 seasons. If he has a bad start to the year like he did last year, I could see the fans and maybe the organization leaning towards Mund if he comes in and impresses.
RG3, Robert Griffin on Bleacher Report, calling out his old teammate with Washington, Kirk Cousins. Didn't realize that they might not have been friendly. Maybe I should have known that. I don't know. There's a lot you could know. There's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of things out there. I didn't know that one. Michael Hauser in goal for the Sabres tonight. Do you know the story of his childhood?
I do not. Someone tweeted at us about it, and I have been meaning to do a little looking, but I just have not had a moment to do it. So no, I don't know a lot about his background.
He was born with 2 club feet. So according to an article written about him on the Penguins website back in 2012, when he's from the Pittsburgh area, he was in surgery at 3 days old and had 15 surgeries between the ages of 3 days and 3 years of age. He went on to play junior hockey for London and was the goalie of the year. He tied a record for wins, 46 wins, CHL Goaltender of the Year, finalist for CHL Player of the Year, OHL's Most Outstanding Player, etc. He said in this article at the Penguins website that he didn't skate very well. I mean, you can't blame him for that. Mm-hmm. And so his father said he should probably be a goalie because he didn't have to skate as much. Uh-huh. So how about that? And he has not played in the NHL before. His parents did watch him play, I think I read, in Pittsburgh when the Sabres, or no, he didn't play in the game. Maybe they saw him when he was...
Maybe he dressed.
He's
been on the bench for some of these games, yeah.
That might be it.
So maybe they got a chance to visit while he was in the NHL, but he's not played in an actual game. He's only played 8 AHL games the last 6 years. So, I mean, this is not someone who's been like tracking towards getting in the NHL. It took this year with the taxi squads and everything that's been going on to even get him here, and a calamity worth of injuries to the Sabres goaltenders, the latest, of course, being Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen on Saturday in Boston. And so now his name gets called. What a thing, 28 years old and making his NHL debut tonight.
Well, Sabres are plus 220. If you like that, they're a lesser underdog tonight than Chicago is at Carolina. Like, the Islanders don't really need it. The season's been like this. The top teams, Carolina, I think, has a stake. Those teams have a stake finishing first. Each division seemed to have three teams, like, just be clear. And then the fourth spot, it's still the case, fourth spot, there are a couple of battles. Also, interesting, I think, the Sabres season ends Saturday, but there are regular season games all through next week.
Oh, like rescheduled games? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there'll be a week of regular season hockey before the playoffs, unless they start, I don't know, I don't think they would, right? Other divisions playoffs earlier? I don't know that answer, but the Sabres season will be over at least a week before some teams. Vancouver, I think, is one.
Right. I did not know that. I had not looked extensively into the schedule. I knew the Sabres were ending this weekend, but I didn't know there was – it makes sense. I mean, I'm not stunned by that because of the way the year has gone and postponements and whatnot, but I didn't know they had tagged that much time on.
San Jose, also a bigger underdog than the Sabres tonight. Home to Colorado. So, Joe, I don't know if you have any of that rollover money left, but just a couple of thoughts there for you. Maybe betting the Sabres. Why aren't they a big underdog? Again, the Islanders, whatever, they're in. So they'll just get who they get playoff time. I doubt that they're feeling like these games are super critical for them. Sabres and Islanders tonight and tomorrow, downtown Buffalo. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog with Paul Hamilton as we get into pregame coverage next here on WGR.